Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology Podcast, featuring tech legend Jay Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. Jay Gunkelman.
What's left of Jay Gunkelman? So.
What's changed in about 12 hours?
Well, at this moment, I got the dog on my lap.
There we go.
It can't be bad, you know.
That's your therapy.
Yeah. And I'm getting my morning bright sun, which you need to help set your melatonin cycle for your pineal gland to help you with sleep cycling and circadian rhythm setting.
Are you guiding us towards sleep after last night, or what are your thoughts, Jay?
Was it so slow last night that we were putting them to sleep? Is that what you're saying?
You know, it's bad when we're sleeping.
Yeah. You know, sleep's critical and foundational. If you don't do sleep well, the rest of it won't work well either. And it's easy to mess it up. You know, exercising late, eating late, which puts a load on your body. Your heart rate won't drop down in the middle of the night. It'll be your body is still working to get all through you, you know, and so that your heart rate drops down right in the morning. So you don't really have the cardiac restful sleep that you might, you know. And anyway, you might have an obsession which you've been triggered on, and now you go to bed ruminating, and you can't go to sleep, and you can't, you know, and you might have beta spindles at CZ, which are wakefulness drive driven by orexin. It's not norepinephrine or dopamine, it's orexin. And that beta spindle will keep you from falling asleep. You'll hit stage 2. The first vertex wave that hits will wake you the hell up. And there's no sleep spindle, which is SMR, to counteract it. You're going to pop up. You're going to cycle down, and stage 1, boom, up. Stage 1, up, bump up. As soon as you bump into a stage 2, you wake up. So there's no slow wave sleep. Well, the first half of the night, you have to get your slow wave sleep. The second half of the night, you get more REM. But there's 6 cycles of about 90 minutes each, assuming you have a full night's sleep. And those first ones are growth hormone. You know, your slow wave sleep during the first half of the night, your pituitary is going to pump out growth hormone, assuming you have a pituitary. And at that point, all the connections in your brain, the dendritic spines, the connections are going to end up being fostered. So you're going to grow new connections, and the ones you've got will be fostered. And that's growth hormone's purpose. It makes a connection. Now, REM sleep later in the night, you're going to play back memories, and that'll be played back through new connections. And you're going to long-term potentiate that memory. If you don't, well, the efficiency of what you just learned is going to go into the crapper, you know. That's a technical QEEG term, of course, you know. So.
Is that the DSM-5?
That's exactly where the DSM-5 goes. Crapper, you know.
So Jay, if you do it all over again, if you were, you know, going back to the tech universe, would you require everybody to get a sleep study before they do neurofeedback with you, or that's too much?
You know, you don't necessarily have to do that. You know, one of the things in a sleep lab might do is a MSLT study, multiple sleep latency test. They'll bring you in the afternoon, and they'll hook up your EEG. Now, they're not going to hook up the nasal airflow and this chest straps and the abdominal straps and the body position and all that crap. They don't care. They're not going to have an oximeter on you. They're just going to look to see how fast do you fall asleep. Now, if you have a nocturnal sleep disorder, you're sleep deprived chronically and you will fall asleep fast. If you get 5 naps, 20 minutes each if you get them, and the thing is, if you fall asleep faster than 5 minutes, that's a precipitous descent into stage 2 sleep. Well, we run a 10-minute eyes closed EEG as our eyes open, eyes closed routine EEG on admission to anything. I mean, I don't really care to even meet the person before I see the EEG. I want to know the age. Uh, if I have a predisposed idea of what might be there, I'll have a perceptual bias. And I hate to say it, but people are so damn perceptually biased. It's just absolutely impossible to believe what you see. You could be looking at something, but you're looking over here, you're attending over here, and the stuff over here slides through. So you've got to go in, clean. So I get the age to give me an expectation for kind of what the background frequencies and the development of the frontal lobe and those sort of things might be. Because of early age, there's a lot of change going on, and you need to know about those changes. And then later in life, 60 years old on up, where they call us elderly. At first, I took offense at that, and then I thought, no, they're right.
Oh, some pretty good discounts.
So we look at that 10 minutes of eyes closed EEG. And the vigilance model will tell us, do they have labile vigilance regulation, and they're having trouble sitting down in school. They're going to go, attending, gone, attending, gone. And they can be gone a lot, and they're not soaking in anything. Stage 1, they're drowsy. They're not asleep. Their eyes are still open. Remember holding on to the pencil? Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
You hold on to the pencil. Well, what happens if you hit stage 2, your muscle tone drops and you drop the pencil? That's when you're falling asleep. So you wake up so the teacher doesn't catch you sleeping. Why would you not want to get caught sleeping? Well, the teachers, when we grew up, would come with a ruler or a pointer, a wooden pointer with a little rubber tip on it, for pointing at shit. And you'd put your fingers on your desk. Oh, wappo. Now, it's not unlike a meditative practice where they've got people all lined up doing their meditation, and somebody's walking back and forth with a split cane. And if you doze off and your head bobs, you get whapped on the head. That you're going to be classically conditioned to not doze off. So you can hold your state better after a series of trainings like that. But we learn things as we go.
Like if somebody comes in and they're just so sleep deprived and you look at the EEG, can you just tell that, well, I can't get a good raw data here because this person's too out of it?
Well, there's times that the EEG is representative of more sleep and drowsiness than the normal eyes closed EEG. And at that point, you need to get the person to a point where you can actually look at the brain again when they're getting more restful recovery and sleep. But generally, you can get a fairly good idea even with brief bits of awake. And people have labile vigilance. It comes and goes, like the dog,
Yeah.
So, Sky's 100 pounds of Rhodesian Ridgeback here. So, and so
Your alarm clock.
oh, he clunks against the side of you. It's like taking a hit from a lineman, with a forearm. Boom, So,
but these sleep tests that they've seen, like I've recently done, it's disposable little thing on the throat.
well, the
O2.
the home screeners are
Yeah.
different than a full polysomnography evaluation in a lab, and they will catch the dangerous kind clearly. They're looking for oxygen concentration and snoring, and that's obstructive apnea. And if you don't snore, but your oxygen drops, that might be central apnea. And they're not really that worried about body position. They're not that worried about a lot of other things. So they're there to catch the few fatal forms of sleep disorder, apneas. And well, sleepwalking can be fatal too. People walk off of their roof. They walk into traffic. You know, that can be awful as well. They suggest somehow locking a room and not having a upper floor window that opens. And you know, if somebody's a true sleepwalker, um, you know, it oh well, you know.
Well, I don't know how much those devices are. But I'm just saying, if somebody comes in and say they got big issues, and you go down the list, like to me, I would think, all right, let's look at the genes, let's do a sleep test, and then if
Yeah.
all that comes through, let's do the EEG.
If we see because they come to us for neurofeedback, typically we look at
Yeah,
the EEG,
yeah,
and at that point, if there's labile vigilance regulation and not precipitous descent into stage two, we suggest a monitoring for them, like an Oura Ring or a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or something, just to track their sleep to see how it's going and get some documentation on it. Because as we train things and their sleep improves, you want to allow them to see that objectively. And you know, for a little over $100, the Fitbit's probably the least expensive of those options, and I think probably the Apple Watch is on the top end of it. But or Ring isn't cheap either. But
yeah.
you know, the what's the price of having ischemic cerebrovascular change progressing with age because you have apneas? You know, what's the cost of that? You know, so an Oura Ring or a Fitbit or an Apple Watch is really a good investment in your future brain health. And um, yeah, monitoring sleep with something that has an oximeter in it ends up allowing you to catch the apneas if they happen. And pardon me, and also movement for restless legs. I mean, you can see a lot of things within those data sets. Now, the absolute best device is the Actigraph. The Actigraph is a sleep lab classic wearable to monitor for movement and all of the sound and light and things. So it's it's the gold standard of sleep data if you're just wanting to track sleep data.
We want somebody to get a good experience with neurofeedback. In order to get neurofeedback, they got to get some sleep. I'm still caught in, how do we know this person's getting
And,
good sleep
and
and they're taking Ambien. How does Ambien come in where you have people that are like you
oh
said,
my
sleepwalking? What's
goodness.
going on? Yeah.
You know, first of all, Ambien will give you the sleep that Michael Jackson had. You're going to be unconscious at night. But if you look at a brain metabolically at night, when you're not conscious at all, it's busy. Where the hell did that growth hormone come from? You know, that wasn't the brain doing nothing. What's all that REM stuff? That's not the brain doing nothing. You can shut it off with pharma and have it recover with the half life of the drug. Now, Ambien's half life is about 4 hours, so you know you got a couple of half lives drop by the morning. You're still got a little bit of it in you, but you basically are recovering through the day, and you're ready for your next dose at night. These are hypnotics. Now, they'll say they're not a benzodiazepine because benzodiazepines are a specific chemical. but they work on exactly the same things, So I'm, you know, uh, I'm not a ninja warrior, but here, I stuck you with something. So it doesn't matter what you call yourself. When you act on the same thing, you're kind of the same thing. So benzos and hypnotics are things that ruin sleep. Benzodiazepines suppress REM, they're REM suppressors. Like that's going to help your memory. And some of the benzodiazepines have a really long half-life. So the medical community has stepped back from giving benzos, and not quite aggressively enough, unfortunately. And there's some benzodiazepines with a 60-hour half-life.
What?
Okay, yes, 60-hour half-life. Okay, if I take that for sleep, let's see, that means my today's dose isn't gone by tomorrow's dose, and the day after that dose is still on me when I'm taking that.
And you're operating
So
heavy machinery.
so I'm going up and up and up. It's a slow elevating cascade, like driving up the moraines in Minnesota.
So
There's a hill. There's a flat area. Oh, there's another hill. There's a flat area. There's another hill. There's a flat area. The glaciers had pushed things back in tiers. So anyway, you get that up and up and up and up, and the package insert, the PDR, will tell you that if you're on it for more than 4 weeks, that you need to be medically managed for the withdrawal. Okay, it's that dangerous. If I say, "Oh man, this stuff is terrible. I got to get the hell off of this shit," so you just flush it down the toilet and say, "I can't touch this stuff anymore." The rebound hyperexcitability could cause a seizure. It's not going to be a pleasant withdrawal. The so you're going to you've got yourself saturated with GABA from benzos, and when that's gone, you've made so many GABA receptors, because when you take benzos, you make more receptors. So you can't saturate them all. So you're going to get way overaroused, more overaroused than you ever were, because before you took it, you didn't have this many receptors. So taking some of them long term is a good way to F yourself up, and it's well intended by the psychiatrist. They they came out of school a long time ago. They may not be that current, and they still call them doctor, even if they were in the bottom half of their class. So um, you know
All right.
you may not be well managed. It's good to know what's going on yourself and not be dependent on the knowledge of the person who's handing you a prescription.
It's
Martijn Arns has a great video. It's a man in a shirt and a tie walks into obviously a pharmacy, and you see basically waist up, and the lovely lady across, the pharmacist receives, he hands her the prescription, obviously, and then it pans back, and below the counter is glass, and there's every kind of bottle of every kind of medicine in a big container. And she reaches through a hole, swirls the bottles around in a circle, grabs one and pulls it out and hands it to the guy. And he just looks at it and looks at her and goes like, "What?" Uh, and that's kind of like how psychiatry is. Oh, you're a this. So, well, we can't tell basically what the hell we're supposed to give you, but this is the class. Try this. If it doesn't work, come back and we'll try that. And
we
if
can
that
get you
doesn't work,
paid
we'll
for
try
this
it. And,
though.
and so, anyway, you get this swirl of, well, try one of these. That's a tough way to go. My grandmother told me, don't dive into the water unless you know what's under the surface. Hey, it's a damn good idea, but it's not just the water. if you're going to be diving in pharmacologically into messing with my brain, you should look before you dive in. And if you actually see the electrical patterns in the brain, it can tell you which medication is likely going to help, which one is likely going to be harmful, and which ones are going to be just a waste of damn time, and you might have to go through some withdrawal. So that it really does save a lot of guessing if you base your guess on data instead of the swirl under the counter, you know.
Jay, when I'm going to sleep, is that just like my brain going through a washing machine?
Well, I don't know if it's got because of what torque.
Agitating action.
Yeah, um, it's it's more like a toilet. It flushes.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
um, uh, uh,
A bidet.
you well, there's a flow of cerebrospinal fluid, but there's also a lymphatic drainage. And the latter system really wasn't identified well until very recently. There were a lot of people kind of talking about it before it was agreed to that it was really there, but they've identified it well, and it's not one that's as well understood as it should be.
When you first wake up, you get, I don't know, this burst of creativity, or at least I feel like I am the most creative. I can attack whatever, and I just got to make sure I'm working on the highest priority thing. And if I take a nap later in the day when I first wake up, it's like I get a second burst of creativity. Can, can taking a nap help me be more creative?
Have you ever heard of squeak? It's an EEG term, squeak.
No.
Hey, most people haven't. Don't worry. It's in look up in Niedermeyer. It's actually
Okay.
a real EEG term. I'm not making this up.
Okay.
Squeak happens right when you close your eyes for a few seconds. The alpha is a little faster. That will be just a little bit after that. But it's also faster right when you wake up. If you pop up. Now, some people wake up like a bear, slow and not well, and
Yeah.
and they don't have squeak. they they slowly climb back up into the alpha range. But people that pop up come up with fast alpha, and then it slows over the next few seconds. Now, Barry Sturman would throw away the first 30 seconds of eyes closed, thinking that squeak was going to skew the data. 30 seconds is a hell of a long time to expect squeak to be happening. It happens for the first few seconds. You could conservatively say 10 seconds would get rid of it. You could probably get rid of the preponderance of it with 5 seconds. But there is a brief surge. Now, what does that give you? Semantic and declarative memory, and you can focus well, and you can remember well, and all of the stuff you've got to do, and all of that will come together for you. It's a cognitive peak experience to be tuned well. Now, some people's squeak is some people's blah. I mean, your peak might be 8, 9. That's as good as you got. And then you slow down into the theta band, but your alpha is just too slow. But some people's squeak is really quite fast. And again, semantic and declarative memory is proportionate to your alpha frequency. So when you tune your alpha up faster, you have access to memory in a way you don't when it's slower. So it's it's a well-tuned moment. Some people hold it longer than others, which is perhaps why Barry was out to 30 seconds. But it's not something to ignore. It's I think a real part of what happens. And if the person falls asleep and wakes up and falls asleep and wakes up, that's labile vigilance regulation. But when they wake up, the frequency that they make is something that you can use as a target frequency for brain optimization.
But I
So
mean, are
this
you
is
better off taking a
still
nap or
good
just
data.
sleeping the whole night through? Because I mean, you hear about Thomas Edison, he would stay awake for 2 hours, nap for 20 minutes, and just keep going. Or are you going to tell me it depends?
Your sponsor.
Uh, heavy duty. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.
Extra strength, yeah.
What?
You know, some people need to take a nap to regenerate their energy, and the brain and body have a diurnal rhythm, and there's a dip in the early afternoon. You have a cortisol burst in the morning, and it drops down. You get another cortisol burst, a smaller one in the afternoon. Uh, I eat them, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretend I'm a pituitary. Oh, I'd be making cortisol now. I better have some hydrocortisone, you know, a little steroid to kick you in the butt for the morning. The breakfast of champions, you know. So
But I guess during a 24-hour period or 72-hour, whatever the period is, if you have a certain amount of washing going on versus like if you're sleeping 8 hours versus sleeping 2 hours and then taking a nap and putting it,
you
whatever
know,
works for you. Is that what you're telling me?
I would suggest that 2 hours and a nap and 2 hours and a nap is probably not a good long-term strategy for most people. Uh, it perhaps somebody who had a sleep pathology, but still had a productive life in some fashion. And it might be more myth than reality, even.
So I can't get creative. So the more naps I take,
Uh,
the
Creativity in napping is a good question,
all
however.
right. Thank you.
Uh, um, as you fall asleep, there's a hypnagogic state. It's a theta dominant state. It's not an A state of vigilance, A1 alpha in the back, you're fully vigilant, a little alpha up front, A2, alpha dominant up front, A3, B1 alpha drops out, B2, B3, theta happens.
Good thing.
So your vigilant state basically gets to the hypnagogic state. During that state, you're derubricized. Fancy freaking word,
Yeah.
isn't
Well, what does that mean?
it? It means we're saying things we don't expect you to freaking know. No.
That
You know,
sounds great at a
no.
cocktail
A,
party.
a, a rubric is a category. So if you derubricize, you break down the categories. So as you're falling asleep, stuff you've worked hard on but can't you've been working so hard on it, you've got all the information jammed into your head, but they're all categorized in a way that doesn't allow you to shift them around and restructure them. And during this derubricized state, as you're falling asleep or as you're waking up, that derubricized state allows you to do things with data in your head. You get connections you wouldn't get otherwise. And there's so many, examples of that. Organic chemistry, the carbon ring is organic chemistry. I don't know, that's the stinky class you take at college. Anyway, the the carbon ring is a ring, and they were trying to figure out carbon, and they had all these linear models of how carbon would hook together. And the guy riding home on a cable car, and he's dozing off, and in his mind's eye, he sees a little fuzzy ball, and atoms are carbon atoms, a little fuzzy ball, and another fuzzy ball, and they stuck together, and then another fuzzy ball, and they started to whip around, and that finally there were six fuzzy balls all hooked together, and they played crack the whip, and it came around into a ring and stuck together as a full ring. He woke up, boom, it's a ring. So uh, uh, it allowed him to think in a way that he couldn't think when he was thinking hard. You know, sometimes you have to unfocus to see the pattern. And when you're dug in deep in your data, sometimes you've got your nose into it so far you can't see it. And you have to kind of back out to see the forest. You've been looking at the bark on the damn tree. you know, oh, there's a nice forest here, So changing that perspective sometimes gives you a whole new view.
In Asia, specifically India, I've I've heard and seen people punch the pillow where if they have a problem they need to solve or whatever, or something that's got to be done in the morning, they'll say it to themselves right before they go to bed, and they'll punch that pillow. They'll put it down, lay down, they'll wake up, and oh, I remember that. Is that real?
It's a mnemonic device. There's a lot of ways to have memory stuff. There are people that say, "Oh, I'm coming home with a real bad, emotion and everything," and I come home, well, there's this little box. I open the box. I put all these bad feelings in the box. I'm going to close the box. Tomorrow morning, as I'm about to leave for work, I'm going to open the sucker up and take that thing out again, and I got it. So it's just a mnemonic device, and everybody can use a little help with their memory, and devices like that are always helpful.
So when I was studying for my tests in high school, when I was sleeping on the book, the
Osmosis doesn't work.
doesn't
I'm
work.
sorry. Oh, no. Nor does eating the pages. Can't digest the material that way. So,
What about
uh,
Audible if you're listening to something?
hypnopedia there's actually an area of study, hypnopedia. You know, it's not a very efficient learning method, but there's some transfer. If you go to sleep and you're listening to a foreign language, and then and it's a foreign language you don't know, but then later you study that language, the rate of acquisition, how fast you learn that language versus somebody who hasn't had that exposure is considerably different. So you speed up your acquisition of the detail if you've been kind of exposed to the milieu of it in some fashion. But it's an inefficient learning technique, and I usually suggest if the person is falling asleep in their neurofeedback session, you've got them to the point where you need to teach them how to balance. Inhibition. I'm going to teach you to, make so much SMR that you're going to freaking go to sleep. Well, we don't want you to go to sleep. We want you to learn how to stabilize. So if you're falling asleep and then you're not really learning anything, we're going to counterbalance it with something to pop you back up, some salience network kick to kick in your central executive and kick you out of your default mode for a moment. So at that point, we've rebalanced you. Oh, I'm awake again. Now we can do some more SMR training. But if you just let them fall asleep, and stay there. I have heard plenty of people say, "Oh, my clients learn when they're asleep." I know you're billing them. I don't know whether I don't know what the efficiency of their learning is at that point. So.
Where's Dr. Marie when you need her? I think she's over in Europe.
Well, that's a good spot. Yeah, I miss popping over there. Europe has been a lot of fun over the years. So.
It's a better spot, Jay? Suisun
Suisun City. the center of my world,
Yeah.
So
October what?
8th to 11th.
Okay.
Mary says to the 12th because there's some people that want to kind of meet in the morning and chat about stuff and
Okay.
whatnot before they head out. But the meeting ends on the evening of the 11th with a dinner and auction and fundraising and probably
Raffle.
a shave.
Okay. All right. Duly
It's getting
noted.
long enough to be worth something, if you got a little short beard, who's going to bid on that, So I put a few years into this, so yeah. Anyway, we'll see.
I think that could be some pretty good Tinder.
Well, what I do is I we auction off the shave, but I put down $2,000 to keep it. So they got to raise more than that in order to shave it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and if it's two people bidding against each other for the rights, and we had John LeMay and his group and Nick Dogros and his group bidding against each other at an AAPB meeting, and we got $7,000 that year for the shave. But the thing is, if you bid, it's like throwing the money on the table in poker. You don't get to take your money back out.
That's staying.
Your bid in. If you lose, you still lose. It stayed on the table. It was a donation. This was for the students. You're not a loser. You're a donor. So anyway, and people have done some crazy things. Tiff braided two long strips with beads on it and stuff. But Nick left a Hitler mustache, and I say whatever you do, if you shave it all off, that's fine. If you want to do something and leave it, I'll leave it for 24 hours. But you can walk onto an elevator with a funny, dangly, thing on your chin, but the Hitler mustache is awfully hard to explain.
Yeah, that's
so I was in my room. I had room service. And now just put it over there, So anyway, I took a picture 24 hours later and sent it to Nick online, and he said, "Okay, you can shave now." So.
And more fun like that can be had in Suisun City this October. Stay tuned. And where did we come up with all these questions? Why are we talking about this stuff? We had our Q&A last night, every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. We nerd out with fellow nerds that come in and ask obscure neurofeedback questions, and we do our best not to try to step in it and answer them. Join us. And then we do step in it. We want to get into, clean off our shoes. We do this show and we clean off and what we didn't have time the night before.
Shoes, waiters, armpit waiters. So
don't you know?
We get right into it.
That's right. Up to here. Jay Gunkelman, go get a sip of water. Thank you so much for another great episode of the NeuroNoodle Neurofeedback Podcast.
Have a great day, Pete.
All right, bye, guys. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.